1 on a Sunday morning. It is the 17th of August. Rise and shine, my friends. Good morning to you. I'm West 2 First Warning Meteorologist Eric Burris. This is Coffee Talk. We get together 7 days a week, chat about what's doing in the world of weather. And obviously, this morning, the big story continues to be Hurricane Erin. Maximum sustained winds down a little bit from overnight. Was a category 5 yesterday. Just an incredible storm. Expected to get better organized today, kind of trying to go through an eyewall replacement cycle, it seems like. Winds are at 125, moving to the west northwest at about 14. It has been a squally couple of days through the Caribbean islands. As a matter of fact, let's just kind of go through here. Give it a couple of minutes. The computer's going to try and go and pull up some of the radar data here, and it's going to take a while for it to buffer. As you can see, it's still kind of downloading it. But you can see all that squally weather moving through places like Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands. I'll zoom this in a little bit just to kind of give you an idea. Even though the storm stayed well north of Puerto Rico, it was squally. Squally, squally. Our friends and family there did have some gusty winds, tropical storm force wind gusts in some of those outer bands as the major hurricane passed by to the north. Now, what's ahead for the storm, right? Because everybody wants to know what's going on. Everybody wants to know, do we need to evacuate? Do we need to prepare for a hurricane here? The good news is the United States does not appear to be under any kind of a threat from this storm. We've said it the whole time. The steering currents have been very, very consistent. So there it is as a category 3 storm. Expected to get a little stronger, we think, today. Category 4, probably up to about 145. Does that mean that it could get into another rapid intensification cycle? That's a possibility. But the good news is it stays outside of the Turks Caicos, even though there are tropical advisories posted there. We'll get to that in a minute. But stays outside of the Turks Caicos, stays outside of the Bahamas, stays well offshore of Florida, and then recurves and stays safely out to sea from the Outer Banks. Now, I've seen some, I always have to talk about the hype, and it just drives me nuts. But I've seen a lot, even meteorologists hyping this. And maybe they're playing the algorithm word and just saying a bunch of hypey crap that catches the algorithm and makes it. I'm not going to do that, okay? The confidence on this is that its center of circulation stays well offshore of the United States, including the Outer Banks. There will be some squally weather that gets into the Carolinas if it edges on the left side of that, but we are not expecting a landfall in the United States from Hurricane Erin, okay? And then after that, it passes offshore Bermuda, gets into the cooler waters of the North Atlantic, stays away from Nova Scotia, stays out of the Canadian Maritimes, and essentially just kind of weakens in the North Atlantic. Now, that said, this will become a big wave maker as it progresses along the eastern seaboard. Center of the storm, 40 to 50-foot waves, even higher than that. And so, because of that, here in Central Florida, our big concern is going to be the swells building on our East Coast, okay? This is not going to be a week that you're going to want to go in for a casual dip in the ocean because high risk of rip currents. It's going to go downhill all week long. I suspect I'm going to probably end up covering that part of the story for Wesh 2 News this week. But essentially, it's not going to be a week to go in for that casual dip. It's just not. This is going to be a week where we build up the sea, we build up the surf. Surfers will love this, right? The rest of us will not. Okay, so be very, very, very careful if you're heading out that direction. Recon is inside of the storm as we speak. You can see them taking off, kind of flying 941, the two missions. So 941 millibars is what they found on their most recent penetration. That's up a millibar from right now. So I'm sure that they're going to kind of hold it. The 8 a.m. intermediate advisory went with 940 millibars. What was the 5 a.m.? I'm just curious. Stand by. Just for perspective, stand by. 940. So they kept it at 940. Right. That's good. So watch, wait, and see is basically the idea of the game here. Okay. So Erin is looking Erin is looking much more ragged than it was yesterday. But the expectation here, and I'll just kind of show you another view of the satellite. This is a little closer, a little more high resolution, but it looks like it may be trying to clear out an eye again. looks like it's trying to undergo an eyewall replacement cycle. And when that happens, of course, we know the storms usually explode afterwards. So this is definitely one of those pieces of the puzzle that we're going to be watching very, very closely. Okay. So that's the latest with Erin. Erin will not be a threat to Central Florida. It will not be a threat to Central Florida. Should I say it again? I just want to make sure we're good. It will not be a threat to Central Florida. One more time? No? All right. It will not be a threat to Central Florida. Questions about Erin. Otherwise, we can go into the models and discuss what's after Erin. And to me, what's after Erin is going to be the storm system that I'm more interested in for selfish reasons. And when I say that, I mean more interested in because it may be the thing that wants to bother us a little bit. I say bother us. I don't mean physically as much as I mean like timing wise. Oh, and in case you're curious, there's the last five forecast paths from the National Hurricane Center, just taking the center of the cone. Unbelievably consistent. Okay. Yes, there was. If look at the bottom of the screen here. All right, let me give me a few seconds. I want to draw on this. Okay, look on the bottom of the screen here. Okay, a lot of people online yesterday were saying, well, it's taking this westward jog. It's yes, it's taking that westward jog, and that's exactly what it did. But that doesn't change the dynamics up this way. The dynamics up this way are absolutely still just. So they did have to make, a subtle shift. A lot of people were like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles, from the oldest to the newest forecast, right? Like, let's just call a spade a spade. The storm jogged a little west, so the forecast had to jog a little west. You're talking 50 miles, and in the vastness of the Atlantic, that's okay. So, for the people that are hyping, and I know they're not watching this, but for the people that are hyping, including the meteorologists who have a dang degree and a responsibility to their viewers, TV meteorologists, you are doing a disservice to your viewers by using those hype keywords to scare your viewers, but maybe triggering the algorithms on social media. Devastating changes. So I'm just like, how is your management team at your television station okay with this? Okay, so off my soapbox. The forecast over the last five advisories shifted west 50 miles. Hurricane Center's done an unbelievable job forecasting this storm system. Jonathan says, I saw a post 100-foot waves to hit US. Now, I don't think that person was a meteorologist, but I've seen actual meteorologists posting with hypey words, and it's just like, y'all, what kind of a world are we in when you're doing that? People I used to respect. Okay. All right. So let's talk about what's happening after Erin. So here's the satellite image, and bottom left corner, there's Erin. Bottom right corner, there's another wave coming off the coast of Africa. Okay? That next wave, as it progresses into the central Atlantic and toward the Leeward Islands, this is one we're going to need to watch very closely. Okay? We've looked at the computer models the last couple of days, and on Coffee Talk, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it with perspective, and I'm going to do it in a way so that you, I hope, can understand what the models are seeing. Okay, so there's Erin. Oh, by the way, off the coast of the Carolinas, there you see that little green dot, that little circle. There is an area of interest up there. We don't even need to spend time with it. All right, so there's Erin recurving, staying out to sea, staying off the coast of the Outer Banks. There's that next little deal. What you doing down there? South of Hispaniola, north of Jamaica, over Cuba or near Cuba. There's a little something out near Bermuda too. All right, so that's August 30th. The GFS has a hurricane going into like what? Like Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, Lake Charles area there. Okay. The problem, and coffee talk, I use this as a place where we can just discuss the tropics in a no hype way. I'm going to show you the data, but it's like it's one thing to show one run of one model on Twitter and say, here's the GFS. You can't really give information there. So the problem here is when you put a storm into the Gulf, it has to make landfall somewhere. So no matter what, anytime you put something into the Gulf, that's a problem. All right, so current run of the GFS puts a hurricane into the Gulf and then has it making landfall. Let's go back one model run because now we're looking for consistency. All right. One model run back had a storm moving into the Caribbean, lifting up to the, crossing Cuba, Bahamas, and then into the Carolinas around that same August 28th, 29th time frame. Let's go back two model runs. Now we're back, but we're like Florida West Coast into the Panhandle. Let's go back three model runs. All right, now we're into the Gulf, West Coast, whatever. All right, so back to the current run of the GFS. What does all of this say to me? What this says to me is the GFS is saying, guys, I don't know where it's going to go, but there's something that's going to develop here the end of August. All right, that's the GFS. Let's go over to the European model. Remember, different model has different mathematics, different physics. So there's Erin. Okay, the European does have Erin closer to the Outer Banks. Let's go to the 0Z. Further out, let's go to this 18Z. About the same. Let's go to the 12Z. Even closer. Bottom line, it's going to get a close pass, but not a landfall for you hypers. All right. Next wave, that's as far out as the 6Z goes. So let's go to the 0Z. Next wave recurves, stays out to sea. 25th, 26th, 27th. So the European also has a wave, but it is in a very different location than the GFS. Let's go to the 12Z. It has something kind of getting absorbed, but it's weak. So again, let's see what the models are actually saying. There's something that's going to be there. This next wave, right? This next wave coming off of Africa, both American, European models are showing it. They've got very different ideas of what happens. So, what do we read? We know something's going to form. We don't know where it's going to go yet. Now, the hypers are going to say category 6 is heading toward insert their location here. No. I beg you all. Look, I mean, maybe I'm talking to the wrong group here, right? Because we've got almost 2,000 people watching Coffee Talk, and I say good morning to each and every one of you. Um, who you get your weather information from during hurricane season matters. Look, I'm here. I appreciate you all. I don't want to like alienate you by saying I don't care about clicks. I want to be a service though to you. There could be 200 people here, there could be 2 million people here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to use hype words and algorithmic things to try and capture your attention. So, I appreciate you all for being here, but what I could also say is there's a lot of people that are trying to use the algorithm hype crap. And it your anxiety will be impacted. My anxiety is impacted, and I know they're hyping. Anyway, Burris, get off your soapbox. Okay, sorry. Euro AI recurving Erin. Euro AI also picking up that next wave, but keeping it way out. Okay, so because we've got ideas of what the deterministic models then say, what we can do is we can take it a step further and we can look at the ensembles. Now, this is one of those things that we've always used behind the scenes, but it's not really come out in the public venue until the last couple of years. But ensembles, basically think about it like this, okay? The GFS, the Euro, they run. And then once they're done running, they use that as the basis of the ensembles. Then the computer says, all right, we've got the Euro run. We've got the GFS run. Let's change it a little bit. It's kind of like it's like this. You're buying a house. You're buying a house and here's your floor plan. Now, Let's talk customizations. And there's 1,000 different things you can do to tweak it. That's what an ensemble is. It's that blueprint of the house, but now we're changing it to really see what else it could look like, what else it could feel like. So that's what the ensembles give us. This is the GFS with ensembles. So there's going to be like 30 different versions of the GFS. And essentially there's Erin, sorry, tightly packed, meaning all the ensembles are right there together. But watch through time, the ensembles, some of the ensembles are spreading, right? So you're seeing a wider swath there. There's the GFS ensembles for that next wave. They're loosey-goosey. But what's interesting to me is that the GFS deterministic model, the GFS deterministic is in the Gulf, whereas the ensembles are much more over on the Atlantic side. So you don't know where the heck this thing is going to go, this next thing's going to go. But there is significant ensemble support at, what is this, 230 hours out. There is significant ensemble support that something's going to develop, okay? All right, that's the GFS ensemble. Let's look at the Euro ensemble. There's Erin. Obviously, the ensemble spread here, both in timing and position. Then the Hornets, right? Let me back it up. So again, the Euro ensembles are showing something's going to develop. Could it be in the Gulf? Could it be into Florida? Could it be into the Southeast United States? We don't know yet. The ensembles are not trying to guess that at this point. They're just kind of like, something, something. You know, that's 230 hours out. Something. That's the computer model saying, McFly, hello, right? We got something. So that's what keys the Hurricane Center in to highlight the area out in the open Atlantic. Got it. And then, of course, now we just have to watch these runs. Right? All right. So that's the Euro. Let's look at the Euro AI. And if you're looking for answers at this point for this next wave, you ain't going to get them here. And you're not going to get them with the other people that tell you where it's going because I don't know where it's going. But you can see the Hornets. So all models now are showing something around the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th. Okay? All models are doing that. That's why the National Hurricane Center, knowing that, following the data, is saying that this next wave is going to be the one that, truthfully, the next wave is the one we need to watch. We needed to watch Erin, sure, but this next wave is the one we need to watch. Now, why is that? Well, if you followed me a long time, you know that one of the things I do is long range forecasting, long range hurricane season forecasting. And the part of the pattern that's coming up is one that I called the slow Gulf low because each time it kind of cycled around, it was a little slower. But look at the return dates and the hot spot from about the Florida Panhandle through Louisiana, August 25th through September 3rd. August 25th through September 3rd. What's that time frame there? Top right corner? That's August 25th. Okay? So to that point, I would just say this is a part of the weather pattern that I highlighted back in February as having a potential threat for the United States. Okay, so to that point, yes, we absolutely need to monitor this next wave rolling off the coast of Africa. Has currently a low end 20% chance of developing, but we need to monitor it and watch over the next couple of days. All right. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about the tropics as a whole. I'll just go to kind of the clean shot here. And we can chat about Erin. We can chat about this next wave. I got you covered. We're going to have you covered here. Okay. But yeah, we've got almost two. You could tell that there's an interest in the tropics today. We've got almost 2,000 people joining Coffee Talk on all the different platforms that we have. And for each of you that are new, I say good morning. We do this 7 days a week. During hurricane season, obviously we're tracking the hurricanes. During non-hurricane season, we kind of mess around a little bit and have some fun. It's a good little group. Tad's asking, curious whether a storm ever entered the Gulf through the Yucatan Strait and exited the Florida Strait. Ay, Voltismere. There have been a lot of paths through the Yucatan Strait. That'd be a really hard turn. Yeah, that'd be a hard turn. Linda, I appreciate your honesty. Well, of course, isn't that what? Why else would I sit? I'm off today. Why else would I sit here for a half an hour on an off day? Well, I guess there's a reason. I could sit here and try to hype the snot out of it for clicks. Catastrophic update. What? Like, what? The algorithm is like, and you know what's funny is like, the two people that I go off on with this, y'all, and when we have like meetings at the television station to talk about social media, I get there and I get so frustrated. And they're all just like, we get it, Burris, we get it. Ugh. Ben's asking, what makes storms turn and how can they be predicted? Absolutely. That's a great question. So let's look at kind of the steering pattern here for Erin. That's a really great question. So there it is. You see it north of Puerto Rico. The Bermuda High is there. And then there's an area of high pressure out over the Mississippi River right now. That's the one that really made us hot and drier the last couple of days. What's happened is as they've split, you see the orange shading there? There's a ribbon, a pathway between them, right? That storm, Erin is riding around the Bermuda High and is able to recurve, right? But you can see here, okay, so look, for example, this is Friday the 22nd. Look near Puerto Rico toward the bottom. You see that little yellow circle? That's the next wave. And the problem is that behind Erin, that Bermuda High, watch, it starts to build back in. And because it's building back in, this next storm probably won't have the same opportunity for recurvature. That's why it's one we have to watch. When you build that big Bermuda High in, we call it in the weather nerd community. I don't know who penned the term, but I feel like it's just ridge over troubled water. When you build that ridge in over the recurvature path, you shut it off. And thus, the storm can't recurve and it has to keep going west. And when that happens, that's where you throw storms from the Atlantic into the Gulf. That's where you run into trouble. And if you've been on Coffee Talk for a while, you ridge over troubled water. When you talk about the ridge over troubled water, you don't like to talk about the ridge over troubled water. And contrary to popular belief, like, let me explain something to you. Yeah, doing weather's my job. I don't like when a hurricane hits because A, my job becomes super stressful. But it's your job. Got it, dude. Thanks. B, I work a ton of extra hours. But it's your job. It's your Super Bowl. Yeah, but no. I also am a homeowner and I don't want to deal with the stress of it. I like the science of meteorology of tropics. I don't like living the hurricane life, okay? Just so you know. Just so that we're fully transparent with each other. I don't want a hurricane to hit me. I don't want a hurricane to hit you. I don't want a hurricane to hit everywhere. Ah, there you go. Don't forget, for your $5 subscriptions, there's a lot of merch available. I give Voltismere. You should have the cheesy newsroom music behind catastrophic update. Got to add a little razzle dazzle. Yeah. Hold on. I've got it all on my phone. Let me pull it up. Hold on. If we're gonna do this, and of course I open up my files and it's already right there. Let's go with some old Wesh music. Let's do breaking news. We'll do the breaking news themes from 2012. Here we are. It's a hurricane. Breaking news. It's a hurricane. All right. Hi, vey. I haven't heard any of those cuts, and those cuts are like 15 years old. All right. Greg's asking, any concerns for cruisers in the Caribbean next week? All right. So, for folks that are going on cruises, the thing to remember here, let me just pull this up real quick. It's really remarkable. Let me just do this. Stand by 2 seconds. Depending on where you go, right? But watch how through time, a lot of people cruise out in the Bahamas. Ooh, too close. Watch how, and this is what's amazing about the Bahamas. And I always say, like, the Bahamas really do insulate. So if you're going on like, there's the hurricane just outside of the Bahamas, right? The wave action in Central Florida will pick up. Why? Because it's rolling around and the Bahamas are not here to protect us. But look down in like Miami or the Keys, like they are super protected from the waves because of the Bahamas, right? So as the storm moves through, it'll kind of wrap around the Bahamas. But yeah, the Bahamas really insulate. Now for the Caribbean, there's the pathway around Puerto Rico that lets some of that wave action in. But yeah, looking ahead to next week, I mean, it'll get a little bumpy, but nothing, nothing, nothing that is going to be catastrophic. So yeah, you're doing just fine. There's no concerns. Those cruise lines are really good at not throwing their massive investments into a hurricane. They're not perfect, as history has shown us, but they're really good. Yeah. Yeah. So Jennifer asking about cruising around September 1st through the 5th. I mean, it's August 17th. We know that there's probably going to be a storm developing that last week of August, but after, we have to watch and see. Jennifer says, "Hi from Puerto Rico. We have a lot of rain and have had a blackout." Well, the problem is on the island of Puerto Rico, particularly since Maria, um, you get a blackout there real easy, you know? Maybe we can have breaking news. Super cold front enters the Florida the first week in September. Yeah, well, hold on. Let me find a good breaking news theme for that. Here. Breaking news. Actually, this is the one Wes used. Breaking news, a super cold front. Okay, enough. Enough of that. Breaking news. That's funny. I pulled up the one Wes actually used 12 years ago. All right. So, any other questions on the tropics or, more specifically, Erin or the wave behind Erin? Are we good with this? This is not going to be a storm that's going to be hitting Florida. It will be picking up our surf. It will be picking up our rip currents. And then beyond Erin, we have that next wave rolling off the coast of Africa that we're going to be watching. That one needs to be watched. Not saying it's going to hit Florida. As a matter of fact, the pattern should suggest that it wants to end up in the Gulf, but the models don't know where it's going yet. And I only say the long range pattern just because it kind of gives us an idea. When I forecast operationally, I keep in the back of my mind the long range patterns, but I forecast operationally based on the models, just like anyone else should. Okay. Debbie's asking, when will the wave behind Erin get to my house? I know. I give Voltasmere. Oh man, oh man, oh man. What is the next name? I've lost count. Yeah, well, and I'm not going to name storms before they're named, but the next name on the list is Fernand. If this thing off the coast of Africa takes the name Fernand, however we say it, if you're new to, there's almost 2,000 people. A lot of people are new to Coffee Talk. We make fun of the odd naming conventions, like Fernand, like the pronunciation. Anyway, Fernand is the next one. That doesn't seem like an ominous name, so let's keep it that way. Let's whatever Fernand ends up being named. Can we just not make it a threat? I want like Fernand seems like I need to give it a warm hug, right? That doesn't sound like an ominous storm. Let's keep it that way, right? Please. How much rain fell last night in downtown Orlando? The soccer match was delayed 3+ hours. How much rain fell? I'll look at that when I get to local. Right now, I'm still in tropics mode. Danny, flights down the East Coast Wednesday through Friday. Should I be concerned about it? I wouldn't think so, Danny. Just localized weather stuff. Not really thinking that Erin's going to do much. It'll stay offshore, yeah. Jeannie Rowan. Okay, I'm going to do it with the breaking news theme. Stand by. Breaking news. Anyone that purchased a cruise this fall at really low prices, welcome to hurricane season. Have fun. Okay, that's funny. Should I travel back to Florida first in August or stay away? Come to Florida. We have theme parks and beaches. Imelda sounds sassy. I feel like we got well, and the I name storms through history always are the ones that want to come bother us. I don't know what it is. Lori, what factors need to take place for a Hurricane Eyewall to be replaced? That's a really good question. So let's do this. Give me a second. I gotta find this. So this is the tropical satellite. It's gonna take it a minute because there's a lot of data here. All right, perfect. All right, so look at the eye there from Erin, right? I mean, that was a beast of an eye, but it was a tiny eye. So the problem is when it comes, and this is old data because you can see it's nowhere near Puerto Rico yet. So the problem is it's kind of like doing construction, right? You've got to put the walls up commercial construction. You have to put the walls up before you can destroy the building and rebuild the building. So what happens in a hurricane is if you look inside, you've got that eye wall. It starts building an outer eye wall. And then as that outer eye wall, the bigger sized eye wall starts to get stronger, it collapses the inner one and then clears out to have an outer eye wall. That's called an eye wall replacement cycle. So looking at the satellite data here, watch how you start collapsing in that eye wall, right? And then it's going to try to build another eye wall, or it doesn't. We have to wait and see. But it looks like that's what it's trying to do. That's when it will be getting larger geographically. Wind field will be spreading. That's how these tropical systems kind of get stronger and stronger and stronger. That was a really, really good question. The storms, we're still early in hurricane season, so at least in the peak part of it. So we've got plenty of storms to watch for sure. Yep. All right. Questions, comments, concerns. Ah, Yukon. So funny. All right, local forecast. Let's just take a couple of minutes here for us in Central Florida and peek outside. It is a beautiful. Maybe you don't want to. Of course, you don't want to work. So I'll have to pull up a tower cam the other way. Fine, we'll do it the other way. Give it a second to load. It's fine, computer. There we go. Downtown Orlando looking gorgeous. New Smyrna Beach looking gorgeous. 80 degrees in both locations. Our first warning live Doppler radar is quiet over top of us for now, though there are a couple of thunderstorms off the shoreline there of Volusia County. Not moving in, but they're there. For those of you that were asking about how much rain we saw in downtown Orlando, not a ton is the answer. We saw some rain, but it looks like an inch or less. Downtown, about an inch and a half. Okay, sorry, nearly 2 inches up to the north. Got it. All right, temperatures out the door, upper 70s, lower 80s. So that's not too bad. Forecast today goes with a 60% coverage of showers and storms with a high temperature of about 95 degrees. Now, for planning purposes, let's look at futurecasts so that we can time out your stormy weather hour by hour, right? This morning, some clouds. Oh, yeah. Bada bing, bada boom. 12, 12:30, 1 o'clock, storms starting to bubble up. 2, 3 o'clock, storms continuing. 4, 5, widespread showers and storms. And then by 7 o'clock, it all starts to clear out little by little. 7-day forecast showing that rough surf rip current concern basically all week long. Rain chances come down a little bit Tuesday, Wednesday because the storm offshore. This is what's so interesting. I love tropical meteorology. I hate living through hurricanes, but I love tropical meteorology. It's fantastic. It's just so cool until you have to live through it. And then it's not so cool. All right. So there's the storm system passing by off of our East Coast as it gets close-ish, as it gets to about its closest pass, it's going to pull moisture away from us. And as it does so, we dry out. So look again, that's midweek, right? So look again at the 7-day forecast, and you'll notice midweek, Rain chances come down for Central Florida. They don't go away completely, but it just kind of it's drawing that moisture away from us a little bit. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we start to ramp that storm coverage right back up. I will also add, we're going to be watching the tropics. That next wave, wherever it goes, is looking more impactful, thus something we'll have to watch. Okay? Yukon. So my question: I've seen storms that have done an eyewall replacement. Have we had any that have done two and three? Absolutely, a ton. Yeah, storms do. You may not have noticed it, but absolutely, storms do several eyewall replacement cycles. Absolutely, they do. Yeah. Frank says whenever there's a box on the bottom left, Futurecast does me no good. Well, I could be a schmuck and say you're in the coverage area, Frank. But because you're my brother, I gotcha. Wow, what is we just jumped up. We've got 2,600 people on Coffee Talk right now. Good, great. Hi, everybody. Hi. Thanks for hanging out. All right, Futurecast. I'll take the box out for my brother Frank, even though he doesn't live in Central Florida. There you go, Frank. Okay. This morning, it's gorgeous. Bubbling showers, 1 o'clock, 2, 3 o'clock, going widespread storms, continuing that coverage 4, 5 o'clock, 6, 7 o'clock, storms around, and then by 8, 9 o'clock, things are quieting down little bit by little bit. Yeah. All right. There you go. Questions about the tropics? Questions, comments, concerns? While I'm asking, I'm going to pop up the recon and see if they have found 941, 941. So no, they're both about to turn back inbound, both the NOAA P3 Orion and the Air Force WC-130J helicopter. God no. Hercules, other H word. They're both about to turn inbound, and that's going to give us another opportunity to see the center of circulation. Has the pressure dropped? Has the pressure risen? Has the temperatures dropped or risen? What's the state of affairs? Because if we look at it, it kind of starting to look a little ragged. Now, that's very typical as the sun rises. For whatever reason, they like to kind of get a little weaker around sunrise and then kind of go kersplowy and fire up again. So we'll have to watch that. But you get the idea, right? All right. Questions, comments, concerns. Since it's lowering its category status, could it stay on a westward track? I mean, it's still a heck of a storm. No. The atmospherics are going to want it to recurve. Yeah. Maria, helicopter. Let's take the helicopter. Now you can do anything once. That's correct. I I tell all of my interns that I don't say all. Some interns are like, "What if you say a bad word?" And I'm like, "Well, you can do anything once. Twice if you're quick, 3 times if you're really quick." So there you go. Brad, next weekend NASCAR is in Daytona. Looks wet. It does look wet. Oh, I'm sorry about that. It does look wet. Yep. Yep. Roxy, any chance it goes into the Gulf? Erin will not go into the Gulf. The next wave, unfortunately, may sneak into the Gulf. Too early to tell, right? So we'll have to watch, wait, and see. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, my friends. For those of you that are new to Coffee Talk, we do this 7 days a week. And I will tell you, I'm on a mission to not hype. So if you see a bunch of stuff like people screaming about catastrophic update or massive shift, you're not going to get that from me. If you want real data from a real meteorologist who really doesn't care about playing the algorithm against you, I'm your guy. And I appreciate you hanging with me. If you're up to that sort of thing and you want, stress levels going up, there's plenty of those guys too, and gals. So, anyway, I'm here at 8 o'clock in the morning, just about every day. Massive update. Okay. All right. When will the next wave arrive? I mean, we've got like 2 weeks. Yeah. So don't worry about it. For now, we're just going to watch, and the date is going to change each day, and I'll keep you up to date. Yeah. All right. Chrissy's asking, is South Carolina going to get hit? No. I mean, you may get some squally weather at the beach, depending on exactly how close it gets, but no, it's not going over there. Stress level 0, threat level midnight. Anybody get that reference? Yeah. Yeah. What's the thinking on the next wave? Daytona washout, Gulf Terminator. You know, the next wave, and I talked for probably 15, 20 minutes about it. So rewind coffee talk. I talked quite a bit about that next wave, but for now, the models don't know where it's going to go, but they do know something is going to get going. So end of August, about the next week to 2 weeks time, we're going to have something to watch. Okay. Vicky Joe, good morning to you. Good morning. Sam Mary, good morning. Eduardo, is this matching your March prediction? So it was February this year. We put it out the last day of February, but yeah, Erin is fine. Erin is doing what it's supposed to. The next part of the pattern that I'm concerned about, which this next wave could fit, is going to be what I referred to as the slow Gulf low. Yeah, it kind of followed the Raphael part of the pattern. This part of the pattern highlighted the northern Gulf Coast, August 25th through September 3rd. So that's why. And if you're unfamiliar with this, wesh.com hurricane section and look for my 2025 hurricane season forecast. But from Louisiana through about North Florida, the Big Bend, Panhandle, Big Bend, August 25th through September 3rd, there's a part of the pattern that really did focus energy that direction. And the GFS is kind of hinting at this. So it's way out there, but at the same time, we need to watch. So we've got about 10-ish days or so, and we're going to be watching it. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes, Kelly, you do. All right. All right. Listen, very good. Thank you for hanging out for Coffee Talk. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. Courtney over in Atlanta, Georgia, good morning to you. Yeah, when it comes to tropics, we just kind of do the things here, okay? So go back if you're interested in that next wave. Rewind Coffee Talk about, I don't know, 5, 10 minutes in. I go in depth on all the models. We look at the ensembles and all that fun stuff. All right. Ricardo says, thank you for hyping weather events. I'll talk to y'all later. Take care. Bye.